All right, Jastin. A through Z.
F.
In some sad news, a famous funny man writer, Jim Abrahams, died today. If you don't know who that is, he's the guy that essentially wrote Airplane, wrote the TV show Police Squad, that also then became the Naked Gun movies. He wrote Top Secret. He wrote Hot Shots. You know, he is kind of the one that was responsible for a lot of those. And he passed away today. I'm really sad because those are some classic movies right there.
Yeah.
That is sad. I did not know that. So that is sad.
I mean, he was one of the directors on Airplane, was one of the, he directed some of the Police Squad episodes, directed Top Secret, directed Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2. He also directed a movie called Mafia, which I don't know if anybody remembers that, with Jay Moore.
I do.
Yeah, I remember Mafia. Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm not saying it's good or anything. I'm just saying I watched it a lot as a child.
Same. One of those movies that was just kind of on a lot that I watched.
Yeah. Yeah, he passed away today. That's really sad. In different other news, Drake filed a petition in court to try to gather evidence to prove that Universal Music Group and Spotify colluded to make Kendrick's song "Not Like Us" more popular than him.
Interesting.
Which is the most bitch way to lose a rap beef.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, if you just even go on TikTok right now and look at all the content they're doing for the secret album that Kendrick dropped last Friday, GNX, it tells you it's real. Like, there's just so many people talking about fucking Kendrick Lamar right now. Like, do you know what, at least at one point this weekend, were the top 12 songs on Apple Music? All 12 songs off the Kendrick album GNX were the top 12 songs.
Wow.
So that means people were just listening to the album over and over again.
That's got to be some kind of record, honestly.
Yeah, that's that. It's a very good album too. DJ Mustard, who, by the way, had one of the best producer tags out there. You know, with the DJ Mustard on the beat. You know, very nice, very good. It was very simple, very much worked. Actually, it was just Mustard on the beat, not deep. But anyway, still, he has this whole thing, and then one of the Kendrick songs, it does this little producer tag, and then Kendrick just yells "Mustard" in what is one of the most iconic things I've ever fucking heard in my life. Like, it just works, and so many people have been having fun with it too. I know there's been people on TikTok, they'll do the whole thing. They're like, when you figured out who was the killer in Clue, and then they're screaming "Mustard." It's fantastic. The creativity that leads into. But no, it's just one of those things that's just weird and absurd. I just want to know who in Drake's camp is telling him any of this is a good idea. like that he's gonna look good afterwards. Like, don't get me wrong. If they do get any information, any of this other stuff, some of Kendrick's listens will be bots for sure. That's just the way things work, right? But what Drake would end up doing if he did that was then people would go look at his. How many of all your streams are bots? Because I hate to break it to you, every single major pop artist in the world has some botted numbers. Maybe not a bunch, but there are some. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of the way these things work. So do you really want that type of scrutiny, Kendrick or Drake? You're going after Kendrick in the weirdest way because you're, I guess, openly admitting you can't beat the man in your preferred mediums. So you want to go this route. And the thing is, though, too, it's like, I can say that I did not contribute that much to Kendrick's Not Like Us, the streaming numbers. I didn't contribute that much to that. That's because I just bought the song and listened to it. Like, I don't stream a lot of music. I tend to just buy the songs I like or buy the albums I want, and I just listen to them on my phone. I don't stream a lot of music, but yeah, I bought it. And I'm not gonna lie, if I was streaming it, it could have gone platinum just off the amount of times I listened to it. I don't know what he's thinking. I just don't see how that's going to salvage anything past what, Drake stands are already going to do with it. I cannot wait for this MTV documentary in a few years, though. The rap beef that ended with a lawsuit. Oh, man. Yeah, that's some fun news. You guys got any news? Is there anything I missed? Something I forgot?
I don't think so.
Nothing comes to mind for me.
Well, fair enough. So I guess let's get into that new stuff. Those new movies that not rehashing a damn thing. Those movies that are just brand new and fresh and just all original. Not a legacy sequel, if you will. Let's stay away from that. Let's do not a legacy sequel.
Somebody will listen to me.
Nobody knows anything but you.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Come on.
Cinema Slayers.
Hey, Cinefans, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Slayers podcast. I'm Sterling, and as always, I'm joined by Heather and Jastin. And tonight we're going to talk about what we liked, didn't like, and everything in between with the... Well, that can't be right. I said no legacy sequels. Why are we talking about Gladiator 2 then? What is this?
Uh-oh.
We will go spoiler-free recommendations and scores, and then into a more spoiler-centric section with time codes in the description to allow you to jump around if you so require. With all that, can I start? Because this is my Roman Empire, guys.
Go for it.
Go for it.
I want to start this off with a very heartfelt message to Ridley Scott. Motherfucker, you're old. Retire. You're old. Retire. You're very old. I'm not even talking about like old, like, oh man, he's like 65. He should retire. That motherfucker in his 80s. Old. He's the definition of geriatric. retire. You have, in almost every measurable way, lost the point. Everything that made you special, you can just keep redoing. This motherfucker also recently said, you know what the Aliens franchise needs now more than ever? A sequel to Alien Covenant. We need that more than we need a sequel to Alien Romulus. No human being can say that out loud to another human being and not have lost the point. And not just be so consumed with the egotistical vanity of all their projects that they don't know what the fuck they're doing anymore. Because that's all that is. And unfortunately, this movie's kind of that too. This movie has some of the best acting performances you will see in some movies. I mean, Denzel Washington was probably one of my favorite acting performances of the year in this movie. I don't know if I would say it's the best, because he is, to some degree, just playing himself, but saying he's Roman. But it is probably one of my favorite, though. I enjoyed the fuck out of him in this movie. I enjoyed Pedro Pascal in this movie. I thought he had some nuance. I thought he showed layers. I really enjoyed him. Joseph Quinn I thought was really good. You know, he seemed like a mad emperor. Totally worked with that. And then you get down to like, what's his name? Paul Mescal? Something like that. And I'm sure it's a fine performance. But his performance also gets jeopardized by the dialogue. There are characters that are saying things about his character that his performance doesn't bring. And I don't feel like anybody asked him to bring it. I almost feel like the scenes with people saying those things about him were shot on a different day than he was on set. Because nothing about his performance heard those lines. Because he wasn't that character that they kept describing to me. And so one of the weirdest things of what Jastin says movies should not do, Jastin always says they should show, not tell. This movie's weirdly telling us things it doesn't show. In a very confusing way. And also, this movie just loves to reference the first movie in the weirdest ways. You know what no one who has ever said, if you talk to anybody that likes the first Gladiator movie, you know what no one ever talks about? The ending. When Russell Crowe's standing there and the clouds kind of go by and it's all weird colors and stuff, like nobody talks about that. It's a fine scene, but nobody talks about it. Because it's just a kind of weird scene. It's just like the lightning bolt scenes in Any Given Sunday. When Willie Beeman's running and it's all just lightning bolt. And you're like, that's a weird choice. It's kind of that. And this movie ends the same way. And what is probably the weirdest choice? It just doesn't ever fit. It didn't feel right. It feels like a dated reference to an old fucking movie. These legacy sequels have gotten out of hand. Why did Top Gun Maverick work so well? Had some references to the first movie. You know, you got Goose's son, you got this and that. But what was the movie, though, in the end? It was a different plot. It was a different movie that they just added some references to the first movie in. This movie's practically the same movie with just some different fight sequences splashed into it here and there. But so many animals. That's like also the kind of weird thing about this. There are so many animals in this movie. He's just fighting animals nonstop. Just so many animals. I don't know. This movie was, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I didn't actually hate this movie. I also just kind of don't care. You make me wait 25-ish years since the last one? Came out 98, 99, somewhere in there.
I think 2000, 2001, but still.
No. That sounds bonkers. Heather, are you saying bonkers things?
Nope.
I think she's right. I think it was. I think it was early 2000s.
It was 2000. Wasn't no 2001. I knew 2001 was too late.
But still, I mean, almost 25 years.
Yeah, so it's 24 years. I'm now almost curious if what would have happened if we had gotten the original sequel idea to Gladiator, which would have been Russell Crowe going through centuries of war because he is ultimately the god of war. Which also, what the fuck, Ridley Scott? Did you not see your first movie? Because that's obviously not what that character was. Maybe that's it. Maybe all of these people were doing to, what was his name? Lucerian? They were doing to him what Ridley Scott wants to do to just everything. He wants
Lucius.
That's right, Lucius. He wants you to watch Gladiator 1 and then go, but I'm going to tell you that Maximus is actually the god of war. Not that I showed you it whatsoever, but I'm going to tell you he's the god of war. And then he wants to get into the Alien franchises. He's like, I'm going to tell you Alien Covenant 3 is way more important than Alien Romulus 2. Which is the weirdest thing. Because anybody that watched either one of those movies knows that that's not true. Because Alien Covenant is either the worst or the second worst of all of them. Easy. It just depends on whether or not you like Alien 3 or Alien Resurrection more. But Alien Covenant is easily the worst. And like we said, Alien Romulus is top 3. It's up there. It's the topper, it's the upper tier of those movies. And he just goes, but I'm going to tell you. You want to see more bad movie than you want to see more good movie.
Did he produce Romulus?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say, is he just upset that Fede Alvarez did such a good job with that one?
He's a producer on pretty much, I think, anything Aliens related since he directed the first one.
Okay.
I think he's even a producer on James Cameron's Aliens. But yeah, he's a producer on all of those. And you know, Connie Nielsen's in this movie too. She's returning. Good for her. Jastin, what about you? What are some non-spoiler thoughts from you for this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I just sort of walked out thinking, I mean, it's all right. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's great. There were some things I liked about it. There were some other things that there are some places, though, I do feel it was lacking. So overall, I just kind of, I guess I'm mostly positive with it. Like, I don't think overall it was a bad movie, but it is one of those sequels where when you sit back and go, okay, did Gladiator really need a sequel? I don't think that you're going to walk out and say, yes, and this justified being a sequel. I don't think.
I love that idea, Jastin. I just love the idea of not thinking it needed a sequel and then going, but we get one, so let's go see what it is. And then watching
Yeah.
this, and you're going, I guess this was it.
Yep, pretty much. It's like, okay. And that's just really what I feel about it. Like, I guess one thing I can say about Ridley Scott is that when it comes to his movies, I think that one thing he's really consistent about is his movies always look, for the most part, and always feel like a big deal. I do think that he definitely has a sense of scale. There's a feeling of epicness when you watch his films. You're going to see some extravagant scenes, you know, you're going to see scenes that look good. Every now and then you're going to get some good performances from people because typically he does hire talented people. You know, people respect him in Hollywood. He's got that kind of clout. He's the kind of director that can get talented people to work with him. And he's made a lot of classics at this point. So I don't think there's anything at this point that he can do where it's going to, for lack of a better term, tarnish his legacy. He's made too many good movies at this point. So even when he does wrong, I don't think he'll ever do wrong enough to overshadow all of the good that he's done and all of the great movies that he's put out in Hollywood. And he's definitely had some great ones. But another thing that's consistent about Ridley Scott is that his narratives can be very hit and miss. Sometimes everything seems to be working together. Like the scale of the movie, the appearance of the movie, the acting of the movie, and the story of the movie all go together, and it's a really, really, really good movie. And then other times, which I think this is an example of, the scale is right. I think the talent, for the most part, the talent that he got for this is good. There are some moments that I think are genuinely exciting moments or good moments and things that happen in this film. But overall, the story just isn't, I think the story just leaves a lot to be desired. Third act is kind of messy to me. We had a lot of characters in this and a lot of moving parts and a lot of threads, and we just we don't fully realize, even though I do think that the story gets to where it wants to go, it arrives to the destination, but it's kind of a bumpy, turbulent, kind of uncomfortable ride in the third act. I think everything it sets up not everything comes together very smoothly at the end. It's just a rough landing when you get to the end of this movie. And I think a big reason for that is because you had all these threads, and I don't think there was, whether there, maybe there was a lot cut from this movie to get it to under
3.
Yeah, to get it to under 3 hours. I feel like he shot a 3-hour film and
with the amount of scenes
and had his hands tied and had to cut it to 2:40.
Dude, with the amount of scenes that I feel like are missing from this movie, I bet the director's cut's easily 3 hours and 47 minutes.
I mean, you could be right, because it does feel like there are things missing, because characters in one scene are doing something, and then in a scene or two later, they're flipping.
All right.
You know, these characters are kind of flipping, you know what I'm saying, in the third act. And I feel like there may have been scenes to justify some of these flips a little more.
Well,
but
can we go into a super light spoiler?
Yeah.
I think the weirdest scene in this whole fucking movie to me is when Lucius forgives his mom.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm talking about.
Yeah, because he's like, I fucking hate you. I hate your husband. I hate everything you stand for. I hate your dogs. I hate every single thing you've ever done in existence. And then, just because his stepdad says, I love your mom and I loved your dad, he completely flips everything. He's like, nah, he's actually a pretty good guy, even though he had my wife killed. And I've spent, an hour and 45 minutes of this movie wanting this man dead and wanting to be the one to kill him. But, he said he loved my mom, said he loved my dad. Maybe I misjudged him. And then he talks to his mom and he's like, now that I have you, I'm never going to lose you again, Mom. It's like, all I've ever wanted was to have my mom back in my life. And everything that I've done has led me to this moment. And it's mom's like, what the fuck did I miss?
Exactly. And that's what it feels like. Like, that's one of the flips that I was being vague about, because there are just moments like that where you feel like, okay, I felt like there had to have been scenes where he expressed you would just think that there would have had to have been some scenes where he was expressing that maybe his mind was changing, or maybe his mind was coming around, or he another conversation with other characters to maybe make this realization or something like that. Like, you feel like there had to be some scenes missing to further bridge that. But in this, it just feels like a coin flip. Like, it just feels like, oh man, all of a sudden I'm this. And because of the way it comes off, it feels less earned. It feels like, okay, this is just happening because the character needs to be here, not because we provided a narrative to justify it. And I think that can be said for a lot of these character stories and developments. The development is not there to get us completely where we are, or at the very least, I enjoyed a lot of these characters, but there are a lot of unanswered questions. There are a lot of things we just didn't go into. There are a lot of developments I think that would have benefited me to know more about, but we don't get those things. Because I just wonder if maybe Ridley Scott didn't feel that those things were important. Or, like I said, maybe he shot some more stuff, and when it came to the cutting room floor, he decided to cut those scenes and thought they were less important. But I don't know. I mean, maybe we should have just kept them in here. But either way, that's kind of the problem with this one. It has the scale. It has the look of Gladiator. It has the costumes. The action scenes I thought are pretty decent. Now they're bigger. Bigger doesn't always mean better, but they tried to do something different with these scenes. They tried to have them be exciting in different ways that the first Gladiator film didn't do. So I appreciate the attempt. I wasn't mad at any of the action sequences. They're all right. The special effects look pretty good. The gore is what it needed to be. There are some just testosterone filled, muscle filled, manly action sequences that is really the kinds of scenes that will appeal to the target audience that made this shit popular in the first place. It has all that shit in there. It has homages to the first film, maybe too many, maybe some too egregious, but it has them. A sequel has to pay some respects to the first stuff. It has all of that. But ultimately, it's just not as good as the first one because narratively, I think it was too big. It was trying to do too much. It had too many characters. And Denzel steals the movie, but I don't know if he should have. Like, I'm fine with Denzel Washington doing badass acting because he's a badass actor. And this was a neat role for him to do. And he seemed like he was having a lot of fun with this. But should he have been the most interesting character? I don't know. I don't know. It feels like he shouldn't have been, but he was.
It depends.
And I think that's a problem.
It depends, because what plot of this movie do you think was the most important one? Because there's about 8 different plots in this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about subplots. They are kind of legit 8 plots that run throughout this movie. Whatever plot you think is the most important determines what character kind of takes over the movie for you.
Yeah. And it almost feels like maybe, and if you're going to have all those plots, I mean, why didn't you just pull a Wicked and do a part 1 and a part 2? It almost felt like this should have ended with a certain someone rising to power.
Oh, we'll talk about that in spoilers, because I've got my whole thing where I'm like, I can fix it.
Yeah, but you see where I'm going with that, right?
We have the exact same fix.
Someone. Yeah, it ends with a certain someone rising to power. Then there's a second movie about us going up against that person. That's what this should have been. And then I think that second movie would have been badass because we would have saw this person rise to power. We would have saw the son of Maximus rise to prominence. And then you could anticipate this second movie where shit is going to hit the fan. And that could have been a fun movie.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking because I can take the big plots in this movie, split it into 2 movies, and give you more satisfying conclusions to every single one of them. Yeah. And pretty much we have the same thought process with how you would do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I know you're thinking the same thing I am. But instead, we had all this shit and tried to put it in 2 hours and 40 minutes. And for what you had, it just wasn't enough time to realize all of this stuff. So I'll quit rambling. I'll save some of the stuff for spoilers. But yeah, ultimately, it's all right. It's passable. It's serviceable. But that's about all it is. I think it just made it made one too many narrative mistakes. And I really think that brings down the overall quality of the film. But I didn't have a bad time overall.
Heather, go.
Yeah, I fear that I'm going to kind of be echoing a lot of the same sentiments you guys do. It wasn't a bad movie, but it felt like it lacked the depth to it that it should have had. It felt like they were giving us a lot of moments and speeches and development that wasn't really earned. And I guess maybe if there is like a longer cut of this movie, that might explain why, but it just felt like it felt very underwhelming and uninspired to me. I think that's my biggest problem with this, because does it look hella epic? Yeah, it looks great. Great shot, great, all of that. But it just doesn't pack a punch like the first one did. You know, it's like it's following all of these like similar beats to the first one, but it doesn't have that like heart and soul behind it like the first one did. Because if I'm like thinking about the first movie, and unfortunately it's just going to be hard not to compare the two, and they kind of set themselves up for that with calling this Gladiator 2. But like that movie still holds up. Like you watch that movie now and it's still fantastic. It's still a really good movie. It still has like that really great drama behind it, and like Maximus doing his speech in the arena, like you're just like you're in it, and it's awesome. And they really wanted that in a lot of places in this movie, and it just didn't quite hit the same way at all. But it just kind of felt lost, like kind of like what you said, Sterling. Like it feels like Ridley Scott lost the point. This movie doesn't. Yeah, it just feels like it's kind of lost a little bit. Denzel Washington is far and away the best thing about this film. He's more dynamic, and he just kind of oozed that charisma. Basically, he was just Denzeling around, and I'm never mad at that because it's always great. But the way that they develop like Lucius is odd to me for a lot of the same reasons you guys talked about. Like you feel like he's supposed to be, they want you at least to think that he's like this really grief-stricken, anger-fueled guy, right? And like he comes, but then you just see him not be that. You see him more as this like likable, affable guy that everybody follows and people love him. And parts of that I liked making his character have that type of personality, but it just was a little confusing given the narrative that they try to paint for you with that. So there was that disconnect for me as well with that. But in general, I do think the acting was serviceable. It was good. Like no one really, aside from Denzel, like really stood out too much. But I do think that Pedro played a really good character. The twin emperors were very good too. Like I think his name's Fred Heschinger, and then Joseph Quinn. I think Joseph Quinn was a little bit more compelling as that, like that mad emperor type of guy. It just felt like he was his own character a little bit more than the other one, because they obviously wanted you to compare the other character to like the Joaquin Phoenix character from the first one. At least in my opinion, that's what it felt like they were doing. So yeah, they were just kind of, it felt going through the motions. Like I said, going through the same beats, but not hitting quite the same. But I just feel like overall it's obviously not as good as the first one. It's just less interesting. It's more of the same of the first one in a less interesting way. But it's not bad. Like it's not something I'm like, oh, this is a horrible, terrible film. It's just nothing in it's really that surprising, and nothing in it really is just like, man, that was just the most epic film I've ever seen. The way that when Gladiator first came out, that's what it was for so many people. And so many people to this day, like that's their favorite movie. And yeah, I just feel like they wanted to reach that. And honestly, the idea of this at first being a Gladiator 2, for me, I was like, why? We don't need the sequel. And then the trailer came out. I'll be honest, the trailer made it look a lot better than I expected it to look, even with the story and everything going on. But then seeing the movie, not quite what I wanted it to be based on what I saw from the trailer. So yeah, it's a lot of more of the same, but also not bad. Kind of like what Sterling said, it's a movie. It's just that movie that wants you to feel like, oh yeah, this is your great action epic film of the year, but doesn't have the soul it needs to really have that label, I guess.
Recommendation scores?
Yeah.
Recommendations and score.
Keep it going.
Honestly, I'm not going to tell you don't see it if you're interested, but I don't think this was a necessary movie to be a movie. Like, I just don't think it's like, yes, if you love the first one, definitely go see this because it's just as good. I would probably rather just say, just watch Gladiator again. Like, watch it twice in a row or something. Like, you're going to be better off that way. It's, and I say that in the sense of like, it's not a terrible movie. It's just not as interesting. And it's definitely not one that you really need to see in theaters, even though it probably looks awesome on a big screen. As far as the quality of the film, I just don't think it's a must see, unfortunately. I was excited for this movie. I wanted it to be better, and it was just underwhelming to me. But if you're set on seeing it, then sure. I'm not going to say you shouldn't. I'm just going to say don't give your hopes up that this is going to be as good as the first one. There were parts that were really good about it. So I still think it's a passable movie. I'm going to pretty much just give it 70 sharks in the arena out of 100.
Jastin, what about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar place. Like, it's not bad enough to where I would say avoid this or don't watch it. I mean, I think if you're a fan of the first Gladiator, you'll probably like this. I just don't think you're gonna love this. You know what I mean? You're not gonna love it like the first Gladiator. I don't think anybody's gonna say, "Oh, I like this one better than the first Gladiator." I don't think there'll be any of that. I mean, unless they are just looking at the action sequences and going, see, it had a lot of stuff for the first movie, but I thought the action was better. You might get one or two of those people to come out and say something like that. But ultimately, if you thought the first Gladiator was good, I could maybe see you at least liking this. I don't think you'll hate it. I don't think you'll despise this. I don't think that you'll think that this was a betrayal of the first movie. It's just not a necessary one. It's just not a necessary counterpart. I mean, it'll go there fine and everything. You don't have to talk about, oh, remember how bad Gladiator 2 was? At least it's not going to be one of those sequels where it's just a terrible, bad sequel. But unfortunately, it's just not a sequel that does anything better than its predecessor, really, especially when it comes to the story. It's bigger in scale, but that's about it. It's bigger in scale. It's more expensive. It's got a much different and more and a kind of an interesting cast. But other than that, that's it. You know, it's all the surface stuff is bigger and more colorful and louder, but the inner stuff, kind of what you're talking about, the soul, the story, the narrative, those are the parts that are a little more weak. And I think if those were stronger, maybe this really could have been like one of those best sequels. You know, we'd be talking about this as like a best sequel, but there's just not enough of that. And we've seen way better sequels this year. Like Smile 2, that was a good sequel. What other sequels have we had? Inside Out, that was a pretty solid sequel. So like, we've had other sequels this year that show you can do it that we've seen is better than this. So now it's kind of like, when you come out with this kind of sequel, it's just not as acceptable anymore as it used to be. Like maybe some years ago, this would have been like, oh man, what a follow-up to the first Gladiator. But now, 2024, where we are, it'll make some money because of the hype. There were a lot of people excited for this. It had a good preview. And it's passable enough. It'll make some money. It'll do all right. Everybody's doing this Glicket thing where they're watching Wicked and Gladiator, trying to pull a Barbenheimer. It'll make some money. I'm sure it has. It did all right opening weekend. But ultimately, could you wait to see this? Yeah. I ain't going to be mad at you if you wait for it to come on streaming or something like that. So, yeah, whether you wait or not is fine with me. I ain't going to tell you to run and go see it. And yeah, Heather, I'm about where you are. I had 71 Merkin the Kings to become the king out of 100.
This movie is kind of a conundrum because as much as it has holes, as much as it's missing things, and as much as, like we talked about, things are just wildly inconsistent because it feels like things are cut out. This movie is also very overstuffed. It's missing a bunch, but it's also got just so much shit shoved into it. It's a big movie, scale-wise. I think that's one of the things. If you look at the first Gladiator, there's like really only like 5 people in that movie, really. 6 if you count Maximus's like, servant man with the guy with the scar on his face was in everything between 1998 and 2006. That man was in every movie ever. There's like 6 people in that movie. There is no less than 84 people in this movie that they try to give some plot to. It's absurd. And it's why does one work and another one feels like an overstuffed, bloated, just slothful fucking mess. This movie comes in at 2 hours and 40 minutes. And it is shot with the pacing of a 7-hour movie. It's just absurd. And the fight sequences, while they're bigger and grander, and they've got some nice little flourishes to them, there's 6 in this movie, but does it not feel like there's 2? Like, they just happen so far apart. Like, and do we really count the last one? Like the one where they're all, he's gonna defend the woman. Oh, look, everyone else runs in. Oh, like, are we really counting that? Like, but also, are we counting that baboon fight at the beginning too? What the fuck? Or like, there's the battle at the beginning. I forgot about the battle in the beginning, Tom, listing out all the fight. Like, I guess there's a decent amount of fights. It just doesn't ultimately feel like that. They're very quick and weird. Like, why did that baboon fight end when it did? They killed one baboon. What happened to the other 15 baboons that were killing?
See none of the other ones. What happened to them?
He kills the one and then they just stop and all the baboons disappear.
I guess that was like a video game boss. You kill the boss and all the side enemies just die.
It's like in those games where it's like there's a horde of enemies and you're like, fuck. But if you kill the boss, they all disappear. So you're just
Yeah.
doing everything you can because you're about to fucking die. But if you kill that boss, they all disappear and everything's fine.
Yep. I guess that's what happened because I didn't see what happened to him either.
Because there's 15 baboons. There's like 8 people. Like a couple of people die real quick. So let's just say there's 6 by the end of that fight. 6 people, 15 baboons. We see one of them die. So he kills one baboon of 14. And everybody's impressed. What about the other 5 people that killed 14 baboons between them? That's infinitely more impressive than him killing one.
And the fact that Denzel was right away like, I'll buy that man. Like, immediately.
Like he was the only one to kill one. What about the other ones? And it should have been at least been explained. Somebody, the next scene, he could have been like, what happened to the other baboons? And somebody could have been like, they went to go get some snacks or something. Like you could have just explained it. Like, oh, they ran away or they babooned the hell out of there. Something. You could have showed them babooning away. What do baboons do? They don't gallop. Crawl? It's not a crawl. What do you call that?
It's more like a gallop, but not quite.
What do you call a primate running? Because they all kind of do that.
It's not a gallop. It's not a crawl. It's just
something in between.
But you know the movement I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why didn't it show them going, oh shit, he killed one of us? Damn. And they could have just babooned back into the gate, Something. But we didn't get that. Anyway, I digress.
I don't.
Sorry, I screwed you up. You hadn't even given your score.
It's called knuckle walking.
Oh, okay. You're looking that up. Okay,
yeah,
knuckle walking.
I was like, oh, no, I want to know what the full but that's how they walk in general because they walk on their like with the. But what do they call? They just call it running? Because we call a dog when a dog runs, we call it running. And it's with 4 feet. We call when a horse runs, we call it running. So,
would it be more like a prance?
No,
not a prance. There's a word I'm trying to think of, and it's just not coming to me. But yes, I know what you're talking about.
And if there is a word, I've never used it. Like, but everybody knows that movement. But it's just, I don't ever remember hearing a name for it. And I've watched hella National Geographic.
I mean,
I just don't remember saying it.
I agree that, something should be, like something should be the word for that. We got words for all kinds of shit. Why don't we have a word for that? I don't know. It's bloated. It's a mess. There's some nice things. There's a lot of bad things. I'm going to give this movie. You know what? Honestly, I can't give this movie a pass. 59. It's 59. Think about how bad this movie would have been if Denzel Washington wasn't in it. Out of 100. That would put the official Cinescore for this movie divided by 3. It's a 66. Spoilers.
Yep.
Spoilers.
I want to do it now just because we can. Yeah, you and me are very much on the same page, Jastin, with how you fix this movie. You have what was his name? Denzelitis. You have Denzelitis rising to power, while Lucius is rising to power in the arena.
Yep, that's how you do it.
And you have this movie end with the Emperor's dead. You could kill mom and stepdad still. And he rises to power. And then in the second movie is when you can bring the armies into it. You could do the whole battle for Rome. You could do all that, which would add more to that in this, because in this movie, the battle for the soul of Rome between the armies is just Denzel getting his hand cut off in the end. Like, that's the battle for Rome. Like, it's so tactical. Like, also, like, where the fuck was he running off to? He knew going down that road was leading him to the army that he was against. He knew that. Because you know how he knew that? Hey, he's passing the army he sent to stop that army. So you would think, let's not go towards my army then, if I don't want to do it. But he goes right past him and then goes, oh, the other army. Oh, no. Let me turn around to see my enemy just gallop past my army with no one even batting. Why didn't somebody try to kill him? Nobody tried to kill him. He just gallops right past, and then they go, all right, we're gonna Rocky IV this shit. You and me in the road, battling for the fate of the Roman Empire. Two motherfuckers just in the middle of the road. And the armies just stood there and were like, we're going to abide by who wins this battle.
Yeah, like, and it didn't make sense. This Denzel Washington character, what's his name? Macrinus? Like,
Denzel.
Macrinus.
Macaronius. Like, this dude was so conniving and smart, and like the way he manipulated his way into power was perfect. And it's just hard to see him going out there and being on the front lines. Man, it felt like he would have been behind that army. Like, no, y'all was fighting. I'm going to be back here chilling. Commanding from back here. I don't even think he would have been up front for anything like that. I just feel like he would have been watching that shit happen from a safe distance, ensuring his survival, regardless of what happens, coming up with the next scheme for what to do in case this doesn't go, in case his army doesn't win.
Yeah, he's too calculated.
He had the advantage too. What did they say? Like, he had 5,000 and they had 3, or it was like
he had 6, they had 5.
Okay, he had 6 and they had 5. So he had an advantage. And they all came from the front. There was no blitzkrieging or nothing like that. So he had the total advantage in this war. Why would he even be up front with everything we saw this character do, with how he plotted and planned and how meticulous he was? Why would he even be at the front lines of that? Unless you did what Sterling is suggesting. You tell a story that justifies why he's at the front line. Yeah, you didn't do that.
And you know, in slight tweak to what I talked about. You don't kill both emperors. Have the emperors die like they did in this. Have this movie end with Denzel just being the machinations behind the one emperor. Still, he's at full power. End it there. So then that way in the next movie, you could still have them dealing with the emperor's, insanity, his syphilis fueled, madness, with Denzel in the background, just taking more power. Just still going, hey guys, he's real crazy. So just work with me. We'll make him happy. We'll let him think he's getting what he wants. But you work with me. And you get a movie of him wheeling and dealing even more in the background, getting more and more power. Then he can kill the emperor. He could take over Rome, but then still fight Lucius, who's like, I'm the Prince of Rome. Like, do you know how trusting these people are? You could just walk up and go, man, I'm Lucian Aurelius Generatus. I'm the Prince of Rome. And they go, shit. Okay, cool. He's the guy. The fuck is that? Do they just have no fraud back then? Just no con artists?
Hey, doctor motherfucker, just go ride on a horse and tell.
Give him a ring. Give him a ring that just says Maximus on it. And they're like, shit, man, he got that Maximus ring.
Yeah, he got that Maximus bling. I guess we all going to fight and risk our lives. You know, like that's the kind of stuff where it's happening too fast. It's happening too fast, man. Ridley, you got to slow down, bro. It's happening too fast. That's why you needed another movie so he could meet these army people and appeal to them and get on their side, and they get to know him, and we meet some more of these army people, and it all comes together. We find out a little more about Pedro and that character and how he had this relationship with this army, and and maybe you don't even kill Pedro. Maybe you don't kill him. If you have 2 movies, maybe you don't kill him yet, and then you can do some more stuff. Like, that's the thing about this. It's just too many plot points, and there's no way by the end you tied that in the perfect knot that it needed to be.
Because honestly, you think about it too, like Denzel's character, Macrinus, he wanted the same thing in a sense that Pedro's character wanted. Like, he wanted the emperors gone. He wanted them out of power. So, like, it could have even been one of those where Macrinus does his Macrinus thing in the second movie with Pedro's character, and is just like manipulating him, and then ends up being the one to kill him or something. Like, you could have done something interesting like that. Granted, I'm not saying we need a Gladiator 3. I'm just saying if they were going to do the story this way, yeah, maybe split it up like that so you can get a little bit more meat in that would matter, you know?
Yeah, but they're already talking about doing a Gladiator 3 anyway, so. And they left it open for.
What's left to do?
I don't know.
What's left to do?
Like, is Lucius, after his dad died in the ring, his mom died in the ring, his stepdad died in the ring, he almost died in the ring. Is he going to keep it going? Is he going to be the Carrie Von Erich of Gladiating? Like, what the fuck? Yeah, they're already talking about it.
Is Denzel going to have a son? Mike Cronus?
I see what you did there.
It's like, you kill Mafaja. I don't know how he would say it. I don't know. I forgot how to say, how he would sound. It could be Denzel's son could come back and play his son and then be Micronus or whatever and be like, you killed my father.
Prepare to die.
Kill you. I'm going to kill you, fool. Like, what could they possibly do? See, and that's why they should have ended this, like you're saying, Sterling, either with Denzel's character gaining a position, killing off one brother and gaining a position, or maybe he does kill them both off and he gets there. But I think either way, that next movie would have been fun because Denzel would have been in power, but he would have been like trying to work with Lucius and keep him alive, because part of the reason why he got there was because of Lucius, and he's trying to get Lucius to his side, but it doesn't quite work out. They can't see eye to eye. That leads to some conflict. And then we can lead into how we get to these armies and shit, you know? Like, I just feel like that was just a better way to go, man. But man, that third act tied so much stuff together. I tried to tie all this together and it just wasn't happening in that fast of time. Like, I'm mad at you, Mom. Okay, Mom, all I ever wanted was you. All right. You know, Denzel's not in power and all of a sudden the brothers are dead and now he is. You know, now we have to have armies almost fight and these armies meet up and like Sterling said now, and they are going to wait for these people that they have barely met. They don't know them. They barely met. Why would they just listen to them? Like, it's just, even if Denzel tried to go, okay, the brothers are dead, let's send this army out here. I just think, wouldn't there have been a conversation? Some pushback? Wouldn't some other members have been like, hey, wait a minute. They have 5,000? I mean, can we talk to them first? Can we find out what they want?
Also, how was it that these two guys were the emperors?
Because they were
Exactly.
twins. It's because they're twins. Well, familiar-wise, no idea.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like how in the family line are they the ones that are now in power 16 years later? Like, I don't know if they explained it and I missed that, or like the text at the beginning said it and I missed it. But I was just like, who are these guys? Like, where did they come from in this line of people?
Absolutely. The good catch with that, because that's another telling us but not showing us type of deal. Like, it was never really explained how they came into power or how this happened. Even in the text, I think it just said Maximus's vision has been forgotten because these twins are, you know, now tyrants and they're terrorizing Rome with their power hungry. It was just kind of like that, but we don't know how they got there. We just don't know. And see, that's another narrative piece that they didn't bother telling. And I get it. You know that Denzel Washington's going to wind up killing him at the end, but that still doesn't mean we don't need to tell the story to understand how they got there. They're just there. Just acting a little crazy.
Yeah. Like, now, one of them I get because they're like, he's got syphilis. So, you know, he's insane.
Yeah, and the other brother like, man, I'm always the little brother. He's always treat me bad. You know, all that kind of stuff. But it's just, where are the people that would obviously be around trying to handle them and control them and manipulate them? It's just weird that nobody was there. And so Denzel was like, all right, I have this role now. It was just all really strange, man. And they didn't have a way to tell that whole narrative properly. So stuff is just kind of happening with these characters, but we just don't know enough about them, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal. Okay, I get it. You loved Lucius's mom, and that's great. And you wanted to put an end to this tyranny, but there's parts of that we don't understand. Why did he feel so strongly about this? Like, why? At what point was it where you were like, okay, you're going out, you're winning all these wars, you're doing all of this stuff. And I get that there was a part of him that is trying to be a good general and he's trying to defend Rome and everything like that. But then there's this other side of him that's like, but these guys are not the right guys. This tyranny needs to end. So I get all of that, but it would have helped to understand his relationship with this other army, how that came about, how did this whole thing get started? At what point did he know, okay, I can't just do this anymore. I have to do something about these twins. We just don't know anything. We know that he's doing it. We know he's upset. We know why he wants to do this. But at least they tell us. But again, they don't show us. So it just don't hit. You know? Just none of that stuff hits like it should.
It's because you're sitting there like you don't get any backstories for anybody outside of like Lucius, and that's only because technically the first movie is his backstory, kinda. Like, and that's it. Like him and Connie Nielsen, everyone else, they kind of have one, but they're like, you don't really get anything. Like, I get that he, like Samuel L. Jackson's character, he's supposed to be slightly mysterious. You know, because he is the con artist. He's the guy that's wheeling and dealing and, you know, doing things behind the scenes. You're not supposed to know who he is, really. So I totally get that. But like what like throws me off is like, were they implying that Pedro Pascal was one of the people that helped Lucius escape the city?
That's what I kind of took from it.
Because that guy that picks him up and puts him on the horse, I'm 90% sure was Pedro Pascal. And I kind of think they just forgot to keep the scene in that shows that be revealed between that scene and whenever he fights him in the what's it called, in the when he fights him in the arena. I think that's like that scene was there and they forgot to do it. They forgot to show it. And that's part of the reason why he turned okay on him. But, you know, kind of like what we've talked about, though, there's just so many scenes that could have been cut and could have not been cut. And who knows? I mean, and that's the sad thing about it that feels kind of cheap is like, we want to sit here and say that like, oh yeah, they must have cut this. They must have done that. How the fuck do we actually know? Because it happens with so many scenes. So many scenes. I'm like, did you really cut out the setups and connecting scenes for 9 of your plot points? If so, that's irresponsible. Like, who the fuck's gonna know what the fuck is going on in your movie if nobody can connect a fucking thing in your movie? I just don't understand that mindset. But like, it's so weird too, though, because like we've been talking about this whole time with so much of this, like, God, they kept saying that motherfucker was full of rage. They're sitting there talking about his rage and his anger. Like that motherfucker is the Roman version of the fucking Hulk. Like at any given point in time, he's like, don't make me rage. You're not going to like me when I rage. Ugh. But like, he has a meeting with Denzel Washington where he's like, man, your cup runneth over with rage. And the next scene is like somebody going, you bit a monkey. He's like, yeah, I did. I'm like, that's the overflow with rage.
Right.
I'm going to give Paul Mescal a tip next time he does a movie that's about vengeance or about rage. Watch John Wick before you go do that movie. Just go watch it. Fuck, I don't watch the first Gladiator. Like, just whatever you watched to prepare for this movie, don't watch that again.
I mean, even if it was kind of what Jastin said about he means in the fighting, he's got rage that comes out when he fights. They still don't set that up well either. Because like literally the only time that I actually saw like what they would call rage in this is when he's yelling at his mom to get out of the cell that he's in or whatever. That's the only time that you see rage.
I mean, yeah, he's filled with the fury of 9,000 suns during that scene.
Yeah. Where was that the rest of the time? Like,
where was that when his wife was murdered? Where was that when his mom was murdered? Where was that when his stepdad was murdered? Like, also, you know what? Some people don't have the charisma to make me think that they could just summon a society to war. And that's not a bad thing. I kind of think that that's a trait that should be kind of limited to people in society. The amount of charisma to bring people as a collective society to go to war should be a carefully selected trait. And he gave so many speeches, leading people into battle, leading people to fight, leading people to do all kinds of things. I'm not gonna lie, I was never less inspired to go fight until he talked. His speeches were like the equivalent of like battle cry that Elizabeth Burke's character was to sexiness in Showgirls.
But honestly, like in the, especially in that the last speech that he does after he kills Macrodus, literally like my first thought was if I was one of those, if I was one of those guys, I would be like, who is this guy? Who is this? I don't even know who this is.
They're all standing there cheering. They're like, yeah, dude, there's motherfucker like 8 rows back that are cheering and shit. I guarantee if they put the camera on any of those guys, they'd have been like, what are we cheering at?
Even if they thought they were there for the Prince of Rome, like it feels like he wasn't giving Prince of Rome vibe. So like they wouldn't have known that was him probably. Like it just was a very weird setup.
It was just anticlimactic every time he tried to get anybody to rally. I mean, his oratory skills and his rallying skills was just like, you know, like guys, you know, what if we went into battle? What if we went, you know, we did some fighting?
Like Denzel, like rallying people. Yeah, check. It would make sense. But unfortunately, Paul Mescal in this particular role was not that.
And what was that line that he kept saying in those rallying things like, death we are not, but
something about like death won't find us or something along those lines.
Yes.
Where we are,
like,
death is not, I think is what it was.
Yeah, where we are, death is not, or yeah, something like that. Yeah, where we are, death is not. And where death is, we are not, or something like that. It just wasn't powerful.
I mean, I don't know, Jastin. I mean, I tend to get really inspired by things I barely remember.
That's tight.
You've never been sitting there going, man, you know, if I could just remember those words, I'd be, you know, hella inspired. You never had that moment of just sitting here going, man, like, I remember once hearing these words and I was the most inspired I've ever been in my life. And somebody goes, what were those words? You know,
something about death.
You know, I'm there, death's there, but I'm not there, so death's not there.
Never the twain shall meet.
I mean, no, that's hella inspiring, bro.
Like,
yeah.
You wouldn't want to go die then? But also,
With those
that's a bad rallying cry too. Like if we're there, death's not there. But aren't you trying to kill the other people? So shouldn't death still be there? Because you're trying to kill the other guy.
It's flawed.
So death being there is kind of important. Otherwise, you're creating an army of immortal enemies. Just because you're there, you're going and killing people that are never dying.
It's true. Also, like, maybe this is just me, but the moment when he is in front of the emperors and he does the poetry, like, not to say that that was a bad scene. Like, I just feel like, what was
no, that's fucking stupid as shit. That is
like, even if they had
stupidest goddamn line from Dante's Inferno ever. Like, why are they acting like that is a well-known line from Dante's Inferno? Like, that's the shit that people quote. Why are they sitting there? Like, that is the call me Ishmael of Dante's Inferno.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, okay, why did he quote that? Like, even if it was because we see after that how his mom goes in the room and you see that it's like plastered there or whatever. Show us that first so that we have context as to why he's saying this. Because I'm just kind of like, okay, so you're proving that you could speak English to the emperors. But what you're saying, like, I don't have a context for why this should be meaningful right now. It was very weird.
I mean, they're sitting there like that's the captain, or captain, my captain, whatever the fuck. I'm not even helping out because I can't remember that one simple fucking phrase from that shit.
Yeah.
From Dante's Inferno. And it's not even that badass of a line. It's all, slippery slopes into hell. Who the fuck writes that around their child's bedroom? Who the fuck goes, like, that's just the keep hanging in there of Roman times. Like, it's just missing a fucking cat hanging from a fucking tree branch going, hell's got some slippery slopes, guys. Like, what the fuck is that?
Keep on trucking.
like it's the eat, pray, love of Roman children. And it's all like, hell's got some gates, slippery stones, like lead you down them hills. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And then on top of that, why were they seriously still acting in this movie? Like, we did not know that was Maximus's son. Why did they still kind of act like through most of that movie, we didn't know that? The trailer fucking tells us. The movie it tells us. We just know. You know what I mean? Like, you can't sit there and go, you know what? We're going to bring back Connie Nielsen. But not her son. Bullshit. The sole reason why she's in this movie is because Maximus' son is in this. They wasted so much time with that. And then, like, all the things when they're just sitting there and they're like, he's trying to talk to that guy and he's like, hey, do you think that's her son? Like, that's a real quick jump to be all of a sudden like, do you think this guy's like the Prince of Rome? Like, all because this woman knew a poem? Like, come on. Like, I mean, the way you act and like the way that line, like, we're supposed to just know that. Like, we're all supposed to be scholars on Virgil's Dante's Inferno. But yet, while that was a famous thing then, only like 2 people were like, oh shit, that's some Inferno going on.
It was just unearned too. Kind of like, I mean, and even the whole setup of Connie Nielsen's character, like realizing who was in the Colosseum was very like oddly done because he just bends down and he like grabs the dirt. And I'm like, You need to tell me of no other people in 16 years that you've seen have ever just done that. just like that was just supposed to be her just like confirming factor that she like knows who this kid is. Like it was just interesting. I don't know. I think they should have set that up better, or hers to see him do a couple of other things that might have seemed like it could have been him. Something other than just like, he grabbed the dirt. Is that my son? Like, what is that connection?
I do like that idea, though, that just no one has done that whatsoever. Yeah. Like, they're just like sitting there treating that like it's a fucking
rarity.
Yeah, like it's a genetic trait.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. What was the significance of that in the first one? It's been a minute.
It's kind of like a almost like a what is it called? Like a superstition, like that Maximus had. Anytime he went into battle, he would get dirt on his hands. Like it's like a superstition type of thing, like a ritual, you know, like a pre-battle ritual.
And also, like, they did treat it exactly like it was a genetic trait, because how would that kid have known that that's why he did it? Like, that was never explained to him before Maximus dies in the first movie. Like, yeah, they do treat it like his father did that, so he does that.
He did at least see his father fight.
Maybe he just took it from that.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is like it was a subconscious thing, like he had seen his father fight at one point. But I think that was more it, at least supposedly in his head. I think that would be the argument. But I mean, outside of that, who fucking knows with what this movie was doing? I mean, to be honest, who fucking knows?
Yeah, it just felt like one of those things where it's like, oh, look, he's doing what Maximus did in the first one, but when it lacks the story and the narrative to justify little things like that, then it just feels like a cheap homage. It doesn't feel like something meaningful or something that would, or you're not saying anything interesting about that. Like, it might have been cool if you flash back, and I'm not saying go get Russell Crowe and de-age him, but hell, it may not have hurt to have Russell Crowe with a little boy moment, and he goes, every time I grab this, I think about you and I think about my wife, or something like that. Maybe reveal something that we didn't know about that before. In the first movie, he just does it, and it seems like this ritual thing. But maybe what we find out is when he does that, he thinks about them. So maybe he comes out there on the field or whatever, and he looks down at the dirt. And maybe some fans of the first one knows, maybe he bends down, and before he grabs anything, you see that flashback. And it's Russell Crowe and him, and he's talking to him as a little boy, and he's like, every time I do this, I think about y'all, or something like that. So then he bends down, and maybe as his hand is going down to grab it, we see flashes of him and his wife, or something like that. Why did he just forget about her after she died?
And also, the way they paint it too is like anybody who saw Maximus fight could have just picked that up and been like, he did it and it was cool. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But maybe that would have given new meaning to it without just doing it because it was in the first one. You could have given some meaning to it that maybe made it feel somewhat different, or at least justified for why it's in here. And you could have used some flashes of him thinking about his wife and getting mad. I mean, how come he wasn't like the rage that Sterling's talking about? Why wasn't he like thinking about her and getting mad? You know, he could have just been in there thinking about her, getting mad and hitting the wall or something. Oh, deesh. Then some other gladiators could have been like, there he goes again, full of rage. You know what I mean? Just something. Maybe not as lame as that, but still, there needed to be examples of that. There needed to be him doing all of that. Or if you want to be nuanced, what if that's what he pretended to be, but really inside, he's really this methodical person that thinks of all these things and tries to come up with solutions. And maybe that's why he was a good leader for his group, because really he's constantly thinking, and he shows this outward exterior because he feels like he needs to do that. But maybe on the inside, there's this real him that we get to know as he's in these gladiator fights. I don't know, but man, that character needed some layers and some nuance, and he just didn't have any of it. It was just all surface level. And I think that's another reason why Denzel stands out so much, because even without some of the necessary backstory for us to really understand Macronus, even though he had a part where he was expositing things about himself, and it was really good because of the acting, and Denzel was just really making more of this script than was there. But that character even felt nuanced in what he was thinking, how he felt about Lucius, what he was trying to do, where he came from, and how he wanted to have power. Like, you still got a sense of all of these layers of this character, even without them having all the scenes to justify that. And it's just weird that we didn't try harder with Lucius, you know, especially because the actor, like Sterling said, they're telling us all these things, but the actor doesn't seem to be able to portray it. So help the actor with scenes to help us understand more where he's coming from. And this movie just didn't have it. It didn't. And then honestly, maybe by the end, when he's all like death but no death or whatever, maybe I would have cared more about it. Or been like, well, you know what? This army may not know who he is, but I know who he is. I've been here for the whole movie. You know, I saw the scenes of him missing his wife. I saw the scenes with him and his father. Man, I know where he's coming from. So you know what? I'm going to forgive this scene. But they didn't do that. I'm just sitting there going, why would these people follow him?
Yeah. I mean, and this could just be me, and I'm just being a little too like critical of it, but I feel like his whole, like, obviously you needed the plot point of him grieving or being rageful or whatever with the death of his wife. But I'm like, his wife was also a soldier. So for me, I'm just like, I think that at any given moment, if you or your wife is a soldier, you know that death is a very real possibility to happen at any given time in a war. And so, I get it, like maybe that's not quite the angle they were going with, but I just feel like just this mission he has to be like, I want to kill the general who got my wife killed. And I'm like, that's what happens in a war. And you're also a soldier in this war. Like, you know that this is a very real possibility. And it just made more sense when it was like, again, Russell Crowe's family. They just got killed and burned because they wanted to get in, you know, what's his face wanted to get in his head. Like, they died needlessly. You know what I mean? And like, just because they wanted to be cruel to Russell Crowe's character, that plays better as a reason to have rage and grief. You know what I mean? And that's why I just don't feel like it was a very founded reason to have rage and stuff like that. Like, yeah, of course you're going to be upset and you're going to be sad and you never want it to be a thing where your wife's going to die. But like, I just feel like it wasn't as great of a like reason for him to just be on this mission to kill the general. Like, it's just kind of unfortunately, the nature of wars. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think you could have kept, at least if you wanted to have that whole thing and you wanted it to be like, oh, he's got to go fight the guy because, you know, his wife died, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Fine. But did you really have to have Pedro Pascal's character go shoot her with the arrows?
Right.
Couldn't you just have him have been the general in charge that was there?
Right.
And she happened to just die. Why did you legit have to have his character go, no, kill that person?
Yeah, that was because it's also like, isn't your goal to defend yourself against all of them anyway? Like, you didn't need that moment. But again, there was the whole not connecting the dots of like warranted things, because then when he awakens from his weird dream that he had, you know, and he finds his wife in the water, like he just also sees her immediately, which was interesting. But like, he just sees his wife floating in the water, and they're like, all right, come on, let's go. No time to grieve. Like, just the quickness of that, where we don't get to sit with that either, because he doesn't get to sit with it. We don't either. So we don't feel that like sadness for him and his character. You know, they just move these things along at this weird, or they cut out the connection scenes like we're talking about. Like, it just honestly feels like so many connecting scenes got missed, you know, and like, I don't know. And even with like Connie Nielsen's character, like just talking about like, you know what, people have been trying to get me killed since my father died anyway. But I just feel like I get what that's supposed to be, but nothing else in this story of the movie you have here builds up to that being like a justified like way for her to feel in accordance with what's happening in the context of the movie, if that makes sense. So it just felt like they wanted to pack in all of these things as plot devices or whatever it is, but they don't give you reasons to care about these things being revealed or these things happening.
No, that's all good stuff, man. Like that's a great point about her. And like, God, man, I just wish he had told this a different way. I just wish that he had really split this shit up. I mean, I just keep thinking about this movie, and it's like, man, a lot of this stuff would have just been better if you split shit up. Like, especially like with the Pedro Pascal character and, oh, I want to kill him and all that stuff. I like what you said, Heather, about him understanding that they are soldiers and everything like that. So maybe a part of his grieving, he could have been talking to that medical guy and been like, well, my wife died a soldier's death. You know, it could have been one of those things like, you know, she died an honorable death, but I'm still mad at that fool, and I want to get that fool. And like, if you had a third movie planned and you didn't have to do everything in this movie, Pedro Pascal could have been caught and then put in the he could have been put in there with Lucius as a gladiator. And then Lucius been like, man, I want to kill this dude. I want to kill this dude. I want to kill this dude. But maybe through the fighting together and surviving together, he gets to know the Pedro character and then begins to understand what he's really about and what he really wants.
Compelling. That's
and
more
everything
compelling story.
Like that. And maybe like he actually grows to respect him. So maybe it started as, man, he's in here with me. I want to kill him and stuff like that. And dude, you could have, the fight scenes I think would have meant more, because the both of them would have been fighting and they're so good, and like they would have been surviving, and he would have respected him as a warrior because they're both gladiatoring and winning and doing all that shit. But maybe like if he's in there with him, he could go to respect him. Maybe then you kill him by the end of it. And he feels, and he feels something for him. And like I just feel like there was a better story with all these characters in here somewhere. But we didn't do all of that. So like you said, him wanting to go after the general feels unwarranted with what we saw. It just doesn't, you understand why he's angry, but then you see the scenes with Pedro Pascal and you're like, man, I don't dislike Pedro. So then when you go back to Lucius and he's still mad and mad about it or whatever, mad but not mad because we didn't see enough scenes of him being mad, you're like, why is he, you don't really want him to be mad at Pedro?
But also,
so it's weird. It's a weird dynamic. You can't, it's hard to just invest and be like, all right, I'm with what our protagonist is doing. Because almost from jump, they're telling you he should feel differently about this character. You know what I mean?
Well, this whole movie is just nonstop telling you one thing but acting another.
Yeah.
Hate Pedro, but don't hate Pedro. While you're hating Pedro, you shouldn't hate Pedro. And then in the movie, when you should hate Pedro, because you think all this stuff and you're in the arena with him and all this other stuff, magically when you don't hate Pedro. Like, it's just like all this stuff. We haven't even really got into any of the fucking battles or any of that stuff, really. Like,
I know we can't just get off this because it was just so glaring.
It's such a fucking mess of a movie. Like, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to just like let you slide because you did some cool fight scenes here and there when everything between them's a fucking mess. And like, we already expected that. But the sad thing is, you've got baboons in this movie. You've got a man that rides a rhino. You did a naval battle complete with sharks, which, in all honesty, that is the most inaccurate thing about that fight sequence. Most Romans probably had never seen a shark in their life. Most Romans didn't know sharks existed. Naval battles in the Colosseum, that did happen. That was a real thing. They used to flood it, do naval battles. But sharks, no, not so much. It's like, where are they keeping these sharks?
Yeah, like,
but also,
and what did they really add to that scene except you just saw a couple of people get ate, but it wasn't like.
But there was no tension with it.
It didn't really add to the scene.
What you needed somebody to fall in and like Paul Mescal's character needed to fall in the water and somebody reach in and grab him and pull him out right before a shark got him.
Yeah,
because like you said, Jastin, what did the sharks add?
Or he's fighting with somebody on that other boat and they're on the edge and he's about to fall but he's battling this guy. The guy charges him, but he somehow counters it. And now that guy's on the edge of the boat. And it's like, oh shit, whoever falls in that boat is dead as fuck. You know, you needed something like that.
Well, like, I mean, at least do the movie bullshit of having somebody on the edge and a shark jump out and bite him.
Yeah, or bite him, yeah.
If you're gonna add bullshit sharks to your bullshit movie, give me some bullshit shark moments in your movie then. Don't just have them swimming around. Like they're at a fucking SeaWorld thing, like just coasting. What the fuck is this? Like it added fucking nothing. And then you get to that final battle, and it's just a bunch of miscellaneous motherfuckers fighting in the Colosseum. It's Paul Mescal, a bunch of fucking no-name motherfuckers that don't even have any cool designs to. So you know what I mean? Like, you know, the tiger guy in the first one, right? Is a no-name motherfucker, really, but with such a cool design. was such a cool aesthetic that you were at least remember. Oh, remember that fucking tiger guy he fought? What are you supposed to remember in the final sequence of this one? You remember guard number 4? Wasn't he super cool?
The only thing I was thinking was, hey, that general guy on the Rome side is Alexei from Stranger Things.
And
it's the only thing I was thinking of.
And the other general on the road thing was the Hound from Game of Thrones.
Right. That's all I thought about. Yeah.
But like, that's what we get in this movie. I mean, the closest you get to it is what, the second one, when you get Rhino Guy. But Rhino Guy kind of gets his ass kicked. Like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's the same as Chariot Guys in the first movie. It's a cool sequence, but you're not like going, oh my God, Chariot Guys, like all that shit. You know what I mean? Like, this one just ultimately was meant to be memorable because it's all bigger. But bigger doesn't always mean better.
Well, it's the same thing you were talking about with how many different plots there were. And like, honestly, the most interesting plot in this entire movie, in my opinion, was the Denzel Washington trying to take down the emperors and manipulating everybody. That was the most interesting thing about the whole movie, because that's more compelling. That was just more like, there was more going on with that. And it was the part that was slightly different from the first movie.
Yeah. And it was definitely more realized because they showed you most of it. You saw that he had a connection with one of the officials. He got that guy got indebted to him. So that was his way in. We saw his way in. We saw how he connected with the two emperors. We saw how he would manipulate them, and he didn't have them killing each other right away. There were several scenes where he was talking to them and saying what to do and advising them on something and it being a good idea. He came in there with Lucius, and they saw how strong Lucius was, and he impressed them because he was able to pick such a valiant gladiator and fighter. So you saw how he infiltrated and manipulated them, and eventually how he was able to get them to kill each other, or to kill one another, and then, or kill one of them to kill the other. And then eventually he struck when the other one wasn't paying attention, killed the other one. Like,
less plot holes.
I can go I can go step by step with less plot holes and tell you how he was able to do this. That was the most like fully realized thing they did, but they needed that kind of attention to all the other parts of the movie. But if you did that, it would have been 6 hours. And that's the problem. You had too much shit.
So much shit. It just does not stop. And we're probably getting a 3. So buckle up.
Yeah, the only other thing I was going to say about it all is I did like the dynamic between Lucius and the doctor. I thought that was a good relationship, and probably of the stuff we see with Lucius, the most fleshed out thing and relationship we see for him. And they were just a really good back and forth with each other.
Yeah. And I guess that was supposed to be like showing his more human side, and I guess showing the gentle side, but it just, which was fine, and all of that was effective. I just wish, like we said, we had that other fierce side. I mean, I guess you could say it came out in the battles, but we needed that other fierce side to contrast with those scenes. And I think those scenes would have been even more effective. they were effective. I agree, Heather. I did like the doctor, and you understood why they liked each other, why they trusted each other, some of the stories that they told. I get what he was trying to do with that. And some of those conversations did reveal more about Lucius, but I just wish we had that other side to go with it. You know, I wish he could have been talking to him enraged about some shit. But every time the doctor came around, he kind of smiled and was friendly, you know? I wish one of those times he was like, man, I'm mad as fuck. You know, and the doctor came by, you know, do you want to talk about it, brother?
But man, was he like ride or die for Lucius. He was like, sure, I'll go out and get your army for you. No problem.
Yeah. Show them this ring. They won't kill me. I wonder who the hell I am. All of them. All 5,000 show up.
All 5,000
Why would you just
show
send
up.
2 or 3 of them to check out what's going on?
All 5,000 show up.
True.
5K deep.
Because
I mean, why would you send just a few?
That's true.
See?
And then
To
the
talk
next
to
movie
at
could have
first.
been that actually being when it happened.
Yeah. Why would you send a few to try to communicate with him or scope the scene or rescue him or something? In all that chaos, a couple of soldiers could have rescued him. And then the movie ends with him in front of the army. You know, like, see,
They didn't even need to rescue him. He just kind of did his thing and stood in front of them and gave a speech.
after they watched him fight, they kill a guy that they also don't know. So it wasn't even like, oh, he killed the emperor, the new emperor that we know, or nothing like that. They didn't know Denzel either. And him getting his hand cut off and stabbed, I mean, that was all right. That was kind of a cool death. I just wish it hadn't happened the moment he took over. I wanted to see Denzel Washington running shit.
What? He took over for what, 32 seconds?
Yeah, 33, I think, to be exact.
I mean, yeah,
So-
you know, that's fair. You know, give him full credit. But that was
Yeah.
it. Like, it was so damn weird.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and the way that they did him throughout the movie, like it only even more makes you want to be like, I want to see what he's going to be like in power, manipulating, especially because he really did have some really great one-liners. Like when he's just kind of like, I always get what I want, but like, you know, just so confident and just collected and just this presence about him that would have made sense to see him as this leader, as the one in power. And that's a missed opportunity, but it is what it is.
Yeah, totally agree. And he just had so many scene stealing moments, just so many great moments. I like when he had the head of one of the twins and was appealing
Yeah.
to the Senate.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool fucking scene when he walks in, he's doing the whole speech and everything, and he's kind of like playing around with the head and sets it right on that pedestal while he's addressing everybody. Like, that was a super good fucking scene.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he was just killing it, man. He really was.
Yeah.
I just wish it was in a more complete movie.
Yeah.
I also like when he's like, what language do you speak? I know all of them, or whatever he said. I was like, that's pretty badass. Cool.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he really was good. And even his interactions with Lucius and everything, where Lucius wouldn't talk to him, but he would say something, and at least you could tell he was getting Lucius to think about something maybe he didn't consider, or, you know, he even had a way of reaching Lucius sometimes. when he wasn't trying to talk to him and everything like that, or why do you want to know about me and all this stuff. And it was interesting because he would say stuff to him, and it was like without Lucius really telling him, he seemed to know Lucius, or was able to kind of predict more about him more than Lucius was comfortable with. But, you know, even in those scenes, some of that nuanced stuff came across. I just don't think Ridley Scott, between the action sequences and the scenes that he thought had to be so big, it just seemed like he didn't care about a lot of those small stuff, man. And there's so much of the small stuff missing, it just became glaring.
Yeah, it really is, like, this movie really is kind of an example of death by 1,000 paper cuts. Because it's just, it's a good movie for the most part. It's got good performances. It's just those nagging moments of it just missing shit. It wears away on you. So in the end, when you're watching this movie, like, you don't ultimately feel that satisfied by everything that happens. So, but anyway, you guys got any more thoughts?
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good as well.
Is that it? We go so long on Wild Robot. We go so long on The Heretic. We get the sequel to The Gladiator. 24 years in the making. And we're just like, I guess it's done.
Pretty much.
What wild times we live in. What wild times. On that note, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Cinescores podcast. Check us out on the internet at www.cinemaslayers.com. We are at CineSlayers Podcast on Facebook. We are cinema_slayers on Instagram, Threads, Letterboxd. We are at cinemaslayerspod.bsky.social. They got to figure something out on that. That does not flow. And you know, gotta look it up every time. That .bsky.social throws me every time. But they got like 20 million people on there now. It's getting big. So if you're on there, we're there. We're at CineSlayers Pod on TikTok and YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating and review. Really appreciate it. Really help us out. Tell your family. Tell your friends. Tell your friends' families. Tell your family's friends. Most of all, tell those dear sweet mothers. Because dear sweet mothers at this time of year are thankful for what?
Pedro and Denzel?
Fair enough.
Yeah. Everyone in this cast, maybe.
Yeah, no. I don't think they give a fuck about the guy that played the announcer guy.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Shout out to Plug Migo and Mundo Ochoa for a theme song and logos, respectively. We here at the CineSlayers podcast, Pro Slut, Pro Sydney, Pro Naked. You. Yes, you, Cinevans, you are Knuff. Justice for Chris, justice for Todd. Justice for all those wonderful stunt people. Justice for all those wonderful animators. All the hard work they do behind the scenes. And they rarely ever get the credit they deserve. And as always in the TikToks, the YouTube videos, and most importantly, this podcast, just remember, according to Jastin, Moon Knight is... Did Gladiator win Best Picture? Or was it at least nominated? It was nominated.
I want to say it won, but it was definitely nominated.
Yeah, I think it did win.
Gladiator Best Picture. Gladiator
Yes, it
became the
did.
first one Best Picture without a directing or screenwriting win since 1945. Yeah. So, yeah, according to Jastin, Moon Knight is right up there with this movie's predecessor. Best Picture winner.
Do you think they'll do a legacy sequel to Knight's Tale?
All right. Are you ready? Come on.
That'd be kind of funny. Oh, no. The other guy's dead, too. I think multiple people from that cast are dead.
Oh, are they? Oh no.
Wait, I thought it was just Heath.
Isn't the big guy dead, too? Why did I think he died?
Is he?
Oh.
I think he is. Because he was also in The Order. As we all jump on our phones.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that. But
Mark Addy.
No, he's alive.
He's not dead. Who the fuck am I thinking of then? Oh, I'm thinking of the guy that played Hagrid.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I'm looking at the cast now. Damn. Well, I guess not.
I'm thinking of Robbie Coltrane, who did die. My bad.
You'd have to recast William.
Mark Addy was he in Game of Thrones?
Yes, he was Robert Baratheon.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was confusing big bearded British men. My bad.
I get it.
I mean, come on, though. Baratheon and Hagrid kind of look alike. I'm just saying. I'm not that far off, guys.
I agree.
No, but you could do it. Sequel, you know.
You don't need to. Why do you need to recast Will? Why can't he just be dead?
True. Yeah.
Maybe him and Shannon Sossman have a kid.
Yeah.
It's about the kid.
Dude, yeah, it's about the dude. It's all his friends. All his friends are teaching his son, how to be a knight.
There you go.
I think that was the first movie that I was like, man.
It writes itself, man. Come on. Got a son. He wants to be a knight. And they're like, well, we'll teach you.
I think that was the first movie that I was like, Paul Bettany is a super solid actor. I don't know why it was that movie, but I was like, I love him in that movie.
Make it a daughter.
Cool.
And get what's her name? Millie Bob Thornton. She might look too old now. I don't know. How old is Billy?
No, she'd
how
be
old is
20.
Millie Bobby Brown?
She's like 20.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's still super young.
Yeah.
So yeah, she could do it.
She's got like probably 4 more years so you could do that role. To be age accurate. She probably can do it, for like 20.
Yeah.
But
and that was in 2001 was a Knight's Tale. Yeah, she'd probably be about the right age.
yeah.
I could see it.
Yeah, do a daughter.
And they're having to do their old chicanery again of having to hide the fact that the person that's doing all the jousting and knighting stuff shouldn't be.
Yep.
Come on, it writes itself. And they could have that super problematic now song, and they can, have somebody do a cover, and it's that lady looks like a dude or whatever. Like, but you'd have to flip it. So if the original song is dude looks like a lady, yeah, that lady looks like a dude.
Yep.
It tracks. They had We Will Rock You in the Knight's Tale, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, dude, they had all kinds of songs like that.
Yeah. So it tracks.
Yeah. You just got to do weird shit like that.
I'd be into that movie. I really would.
Oh, they could do a medieval version of Girls Just Want to Have Fun. while she's all jousting and beating up the guys and shit.
Perfect. Yes.
That'd be sick. And I like her having to disguise herself and there being like this big reveal. I mean, I do like that.
It's not like it hasn't been done 97,000 times either.
Yeah, it's been done hella, it's a little Milanish, but I mean,
yeah,
if you did it the right way, it could work.
Yeah. It's fine. And
So
then at the end,
girl power in there,
at the end, the prince shows up. Or you could have it be the princess. She shows up and she's like, hey, if she wants to compete, she can compete. You're just mad because she's beating you. And everybody's like, oh, the princess. Whoa. And then she wins the tournament.
Yes.
Or it could be the queen or something. It could be the queen that was the prince's in the first movie's daughter. The prince that like shows up and he's just like, my historians have found that he's from an ancient bloodline of kings or noblemen or whatever. It could be his daughter, the now queen, rolls up and goes, you guys are just a bunch of bitches and you're all mad because she beat your ass.
I like it.
She can compete. You got a problem with it, I'll put you in the dungeon. They're like, oh, I guess we'll do it. And then she still wins. Yeah, see, there you go.
It's a good movie.
I just wrote it for him. It's done.
Yeah.
Just got to film it.
Yeah.
But Jastin, I think you're right on the cast. Millie Bobby Brown as the daughter. That's almost damn near perfect, bro.
That'd be tight.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? You sequeling everything, so sequel that up. Let's just sequel all of them. Just all the movies.
Do you really want to do that,
Second breakfast at Tiffany's. I mean, let's just do it.
Brunch at Barney's or whatever.
Yeah. Something like that with Powers Booth. I just want to see all of it.
Who would Powers Booth be in that movie? Would he be the Asian landlord like Mickey Rooney?
Oh, Lord. I forgot about that.
How do you forget about one of the single most racist things that has ever been committed to screen?
I mean, I guess I just forgot that was from
horrendous.
Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, yeah.
I like brunch though. Brunch at
Saks Fourth Avenue.
and just do Powers Booth. He's like Tiffany, but not like, it's about him finding somebody. You know what I mean?
But if it follows the book, Breakfast at Tiffany's more than the movie did. I don't even know if the book's technically called Breakfast at Tiffany's. Either way, the guy in that is supposed to be a gigolo. Like he's a sex worker.
Powers Booth could be a sex worker. What's wrong?
I'm trying to be so
that
sex
face?
positive, and then you just said,
Why are you making that
Booth
face
could be-
about Powers Booth? Why are you making that face on Powers Booth?
Justin, that was like the perfect way. Anytime anybody ever says they are sex positive, just go, well, what about Powers Booth as a sex worker? Just it puts a pause in their step real quick.
I could even see that you were trying in your head to work that out. You really were.
I'm not against it, but no offense
You
to
were
him,
really
who's
trying
gonna
though. I
buy
can see
it?
the wheels turning bad. Like I
just
can hear the
like,
creak in those wheels.
he's got
turning.
every right to be a sex worker, but who's buying? That's just all I'm wondering.
Yeah, I see you trying to imagine this clientele. I knew you were sitting there imagining. See him knocking at the door open at his Powers Booth. You ready to get Booth?
Who's buying tickets at the booth?
Who's buying tickets to the booth?
I mean, you know, hey, whatever makes people happy, man. You know, and nowadays, you know, you can just do it all online. People be doing all the weird shit online. He might have just a very immaculate asshole that he just takes pictures of and people pay him for it.
Talking about like a Powers Booth OnlyFans
Yeah.
page. The thing is I'm sure he's a lovely man and I feel so bad, but you should just Powers Booth's a sex worker. It just
If I just
something
if I just tweeted Powers Booth should have an OnlyFans, would that go viral?
I do feel terrible about it. It's just you said Powers Booth can be a sex worker and it just glitched in my fucking head.
You can?
You broke
He
Sterling.
can he though?
Just, like I said, I'm sure he is a lovely man, and I am horrendously sorry for just being that, you know, mean to him. But
Yeah,
I
I understand.
You glitched. You glitched me. It's like you remember
Just didn't expect it.
You remember in the Matrix when they see the deja vu, the two cats, and they're like, "It's a glitch in the Matrix." That's what you did in my head. It glitched.
You just didn't expect it. You didn't see it coming.
You remember in that James Bond movie when that pigeon does a double take and he goes,
Yeah.
that's what my brain did.
You just, I don't know what happened in there, but yeah, something scrambled when I said it. I expected you to
We
go,
saw it in
yeah,
real
Jastin."
time.
You know,
I expected a quick reaction like, "Oh yeah, Jastin, he could do it." I mean, but you just went. I don't know what happened. Maybe that was just really hard to imagine.
it's just, I don't know, dude. Like,
You
legitimately.
don't see that? You don't see that somebody open the door being like, "Powers Booth, I've been waiting all day for this." No?
I think it's just the matter of like associating the two was never a thing I would have done. Not to say that it's not a thing. It's just the association of the two felt very opposite.
I really like the Powers Booth OnlyFans. I mean,
See, you know where Powers Booth OnlyFans could actually be very successful is people that want to sub for somebody. They want to be like a submissive. Just getting him to bark orders at you.
yeah.
I could see that working very well.
While smoking a cigarette, just
Yeah.
sitting there like
Just yelling
a
at you to
desk,
do shit.
just like, and just yelling at you and like pointing at, with the cigarette right here and just pointing at you like,
Man, especially if you've got like a degrade kink. Dude, anything out of that man's like with that man's voice, like just degrading you, you can't tell me that would be extra degrading. And I'm just saying like the tonality of his voice just adds
yeah,
to what, the degrading words he'd be saying. That it just wouldn't be getting people off left and right. If you got a degrade kink, like,
yeah.
you want those, like, you want somebody yelling at you, calling you like a sissy and all this other stuff. Man, think about him just yelling at you. Like, they just be coming left and right. See, I found the sex work niche he'd be good at. Just fucking great. Just see it. I'll help him do it. I'll help him set it up.
Man, maybe
I
I
feel
need
like-
to write Powers Booth.
Be like, hey,
Cursive.
Powers Booth, have you ever thought about doing an OnlyFans where you just yell at people with degrade kinks? You'd make so much money.
I feel like Sterling would do that for Clive Owen OnlyFans.
That's somebody that could degrade the fuck out of me, and I'd love it. God.
You do love that man's voice.
But also, I also love the way he says degrading things. He makes it sound less degrading, but also super degrading. Like the way he just insults everybody in the movie Closer is the harshest yet sexiest things I've ever heard all at the same time. it is very confusing for me because I am not somebody that has a degrade kink. If you just start like saying a bunch of degrading shit to me while we're trying to get down, I'm not going to be able to like perform. I'm going to get like, all up in my head. I'll feel bad and shit. I don't think I'd have that problem with Clive Owen yelling shit at me though. It's weird things. I might have to watch Closer sometime soon. Just go in a nice dark room, light some candles. Just watch Clive Owen degrade the world. Sounds fantastic.
Self-care right there.
Really is. We've pulled a Ridley Scott. We lost the fucking point.
Yep. Ages ago.
Yeah. But why was that the most like dynamic conversation of this whole fucking episode? Why was that the most engaged we just were? Just like, fuck yeah, let's go.
Powers Booth, OnlyFans. Yes.
Like,
Gladiator 2.
how in the world did we start with Gladiator and reviewing a Gladiator movie and wound up landing on Powers Booth OnlyFans? Like, only here
Legacy
Right.
would
sequels.
something like that happen.
See, that's what we need. We need to have an episode of us just pitching legacy sequels, just to see where else we could do this.
That would be so fun.
Because it was our legacy sequel to Breakfast at Tiffany's that ends up with Powers Booth OnlyFans for those with the degrade kink.
Yeah.
Man. All right. You guys done?
Yeah.
We done?
Yep.
Out.